The very last of this jar, probably. I keep getting more out, but I think this is it. Oh, yeah. I don't know if this will even cover my face. I want to wait till people hop on, get the little notifications. Seems like the notifications are working, which is good. So, happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. We are over the hump of the week. I like Wednesdays. It's, good morning, Jones. Wednesday is like a mini date night every week with my husband because my daughter has dance class, so we drop her off and then we go have a little alone time. It's like a little babysitter, right? I like those nighttime dance classes or like after school activities. How are you doing this morning? So I wanted to talk about setting boundaries. And Jonesy, I don't know if you have this problem. You seem, from your personality, but I only know you through a screen, it seems like you would not have trouble setting boundaries. Am I right about that? And there are a lot of people that do, and I mean, in the work that I do, especially with the abuse victims or just people who've been through trauma in their life, you know, setting boundaries it should be a thing that we do, but when you have an unhealthy, like, upbringing, whether it's your parents, siblings, like, in some way, you've made to feel, like, afraid to set boundaries, it's almost like you go into this survival mode where when you feel like you want to set a boundary, you shut yourself down. And you're like, no, I can't do that. And it's just like a fear and it shuts down. Almost some people might not even know they do it. Good morning, Bo. We got my two men on the line here. So Bubble, same with you. I feel like, are you good with setting boundaries with people? Are you good at saying no? Are you good at speaking up for yourself? Or do you kind of over accommodate? I feel like same thing with Jonesy over here. I get the feeling that you would be pretty good with setting boundaries. Am I right? Like you have your opinions, but also that if something doesn't feel right, you're going to say it or stay away from it. Not let people maybe in your life or in your life too much where it's an unhealthy type of relationship where you feel like you are under their thumb, or, you know, we have that, you know, I speak on narcissism all the time, right? That's my podcast, but still She Thrives. I know it's women based, but yeah, headstrong and boundaries. Yeah. I know it's interesting. Is there any part of your life, and this will be interesting to tell, because I've always been kind of a headstrong personality, right? But is there any part of your life, maybe it's in work, maybe it's with one certain person. Oh, I didn't get the other eyelid. Maybe I'm trying to think of other examples. Maybe it's with authority in certain ways. Yeah, that's good. But is there any part of life where, is there any person you're afraid to say, and you don't have to say who it is, but because it's interesting, even headstrong people, like I was headstrong, but I grew up in an interesting environment where it created the dynamic in my family where I excused it kind of because it was family, right? So there was like certain people in my family, and then that did translate over into some of my friendships. But I've always been very like, I stood up for the underdogs. I would, you know, go up against bullies. I would stand up for myself, like at school. Someone like tried to bully me on day one of my private school, and that just didn't happen. So I'm this strong personality, but then there was certain people that even though I give somewhat of a pushback, I still put up with, you know? I still put up with it to a degree. So I'm interested to see anyone on here, if you are headstrong, I think, did we lose Jonesy? If you are headstrong, is there any part of your life you're not? Like, that's another thing. I have some clients who are like, it could be either one person I work with is really like headstrong at home, right? Like rules the roost. She's a powerful presence, you know. She is strict in a way with her kids, has her opinions, knows what she wants. And then in the workplace, and this is common because like if you have a boss and you're thinking your livelihood, your money depends on letting them walk all over you if they're that type. Actually, I have a story in my own life about this. Then you become somebody else in that way, right? Like that's an example of me where I don't put up with that. And part of that is my dad always said to me, he was in a high position in the government, but he said, I won't use the curse in case there's kids around, but he said, we all poop in the same pot. Like you're not less than anyone just because they're above you, right? And to always respect them, I always respected my bosses, but when I was at a big establishment, a big company, everybody knows, I worked there for years, and I had a boss who was, whew, you ever seen The Devil Wears Prada? That movie? It was like that. I mean, just ice cold, mean, and she didn't like me. And part of that was because I didn't bow down to her. Did I respect her? Yes. Did I often do what she wanted no matter what? Yes. But then I hit a breaking point. Where I realized it was like she was testing her control of me. It was really shitty. Looking back, could she have been a narcissist? Maybe. And I don't use that word lightly, by the way. I'd have to really dig deep, and no one can really diagnose without knowing someone really well, but narcissistic tendencies, maybe. So, like one day I don't know, I won't get into the details of what happened, but it was like something absolutely ridiculous, and I stood up to her in a nice way. I didn't say anything. I just said, this is what I'm gonna do, da-da-da-da. And, you know, then there was a big layoff, like a couple months later, huge layoff, like we had a department of 90 people, and half of our department got the boot. And I figured I would be part of that because when a bunch of people are on the chopping block and the boss gets to decide who, you know, someone who isn't easy to manipulate or easy to overwork, they'll get the axe, right? So I did, which, I mean, right when they said 45 of 90 of you are going to be out, I was like, I'll probably be in that batch. And I was. Luckily, a lot of people like me. I'm a hard worker. I was well liked where I was. I got offered jobs, multiple jobs, like within the week or whatever. But the point is, I was like that, like even in work, but then with certain family members. And even I had a couple friends, and looking back, it's hard to say, that childhood friends that were maybe a little, I don't want to say controlling because that's mean. I don't know what other word to use right now, but, you know, overbearing in ways, right? And it took me, like, realizing all of this in my 30s and cutting off someone who was pretty abusive and awful to me in my family. It took cutting off them to realize, oh, there's this pattern that I've done. And I'm looking back and I'm looking at people I chose to have in my life because I was used to this behavior. So let me try to create boundaries. The thing is, this is important. When you create boundaries, pay attention to the response of whoever you're setting the boundary with. Because if it's a healthy human, let's say someone says to me, hey, you know what? I was thinking about it and, you know, it seems like this is, a real conversation I had with someone in my life, a friend. I said, you know, I don't like that I feel like you are yelling at me, you're talking down to me, and that's not really like friendship to me, whatever. And their response, I say, you know, can you not do that anymore? They wouldn't answer, and then they said it's just how they are. At one point they were like, this is how I am. I can't control it. And I'm like, well, that sucks, right? So that friendship ended. I mean, that was part of why. There was a bigger issue. I'm not going to get into details for privacy's sake. But, there was something else I addressed, and I tried to have a conversation about it, and it got twisted back on me, and, how people roll if they're not healthy. A healthy person would have said, that maybe that's the dynamic I grew up in, but I'm going to try, at least I'm going to try better. I don't want to make you feel this way, We can't make promises we're going to change overnight, but we can try, right? But I was like, at 30-something years old, no one's going to be sitting yelling at me over bullshit. It's not like I did something wrong. It was like their own emotions taking over, right? So when you set boundaries with people, their response will show everything. It really will. What is that quote? I love. It's like, the only people who don't like your boundaries are the ones who are benefiting from you not having any. God, I love that. I love that quote. So this is all stuff I talk about in my podcast, but Still She Thrives if you're new or whatever. I'm also specifically narcissistic abuse recovery coach. I've had a lot of my own life experience, training, research. If there was a PhD in narcissism, I probably have it. The amount of intense studying I've done over the years, now it's been since 2016. I cannot believe that. Wow. 2016 is when I started really diving into this just for myself to understand situations. And then I recently, I've been a coach for years, but I recently am now more like really focused on this. Some people come to me that, not for that specifically, but there's a couple clients who don't come to me for that now, but they happen to have some sort of abuse in their past. So it all links up, right? A lot of people who need therapy, need support, they may not even realize it can be because of something that happened earlier in their life, or they have codependency issues they don't even know about because of how their family dynamic was growing up. Let me do my face first, my cheeks. Oh, I'm going to do my powder. I'm going to do this powder today for a little change of pace. So, creating boundaries, I have a whole course on it. It's on my website if you are interested. It's christyjade.com. But I have a whole course on teaching boundaries, how to set boundaries with other people, with yourself. Might sound crazy, but that's a thing. And that's more like if you're trying to live a life of joy and peace, you've got to also have boundaries like around your time, around what you're spending your time doing, around not getting sucked into the gossip, right? All that stuff that can keep your vibe low. We want a high vibe, right? So that is I don't know. I read like a quote. I read something on boundaries this morning. It was in my email. Something came through. And I was like, you know what? I want to talk about that. I'm going to put my, Milani cheek on. I was like, I want to talk about that today. I feel like I want to start having topics to talk about. And I mean, we can talk about other stuff. Always feel free to interrupt me. I'm here for you guys. But I know a lot of people struggle with this stuff. And I know a lot of women, especially, we're taught to keep our mouths shut. I know times are changing and that's great, but that can still be there from our childhood. Like, you're to be seen, not heard type of thing, where we can feel, and I have this myself, I still have moments of this for sure, where I feel like what I say doesn't really matter, because of the amount I got dismissed. And even in my family, it was very like chauvinist, where I was kind of the butt of jokes. And like, in my specific family, I can go into this, my brother was very smart, right? Was he smart? Yes. But it was like this whole Italian, they have this thing of Italian families, like the boys are like gold. I don't know if that's kind of changed, but you know, they say the golden boy type thing. It's like that. Even like they can do no wrong, even though they can. It's like they're put on a different level, right? A little of a pedestal. And so I was kind of made out to be the not smart, right? Like he had the spotlight of the smart, and I was smart and I was determined as hell, but I was made to feel that I wasn't. And so I have that story in my head that I've had to fight. And I mean, honestly, have just started to get over. And again, I still have my moments feeling like I'm not smart. You can be meek and unoffensive and still sick. Yes, there's absolutely ways. And that's in my boundaries course too, of how to set boundaries kind of with love and from a softer space. Because how I sound and how I do, I mean, I'm more of a firm speaker. I'm more direct. It is a lot easier for me to set boundaries than a lot of like my clients who, and some are better than others, but you know, some are very, they're scared. I mean, they're scared, and they are like a meeker, like you said, personality. And so I have to teach them, and we get down to like scripts, you know, we're like, all right, let's script this out. Go in with a script, do it on the phone, read from the dang script if you have to, and also how to do it without guilt. So there's also the mindset work that comes around these boundaries, these conversations. And like Bubble, I know we don't need that necessarily. I used to with my family. Now I don't. Now it is second nature. It's just like, this is my truth. I know I deserve to be treated well. I know I deserve to not feel that feeling of walking on eggshells, right? Hello, Marie. We're talking about setting boundaries. Oh, what time is it? I have an appointment at 9. So you might want to watch this over, Marie, because I got too far in to start over with it. So you might want to rewatch it. But it's about setting boundaries. Yes, setting boundaries. And I have a boundaries course. I'm going to redo a whole course on like more specific thriving after abuse. But hold on. Also, is the person who goes beyond boundaries doing this out of love? That would matter to me. Yes, the intention is there. Woke up late. Good. You needed it then. Yeah. What is the intention behind the person? But here's the thing. That's why I say watch what happens when you voice your boundary. Because a person coming out of love who's like, well, I'm trying to think of something that would be an example. But let's say they're coming out of love and they say XYZ and they do whatever they do. And you're like, look, I'm not comfortable with what you did. Well, that's the thing. Some people, healthy people, will not get offended, or they might get hurt that you feel a certain way but they want to change and they want to make you feel better, right? Stand in the corner. So, oh, and Marie, here's the quote I already said, but I love in relation to this, is that the people who don't like your boundaries are the people who benefit from you having none, right? Yeah. And Marie, I can tell too by your personality, you're not one to probably take a bunch of stuff, but I do wonder, and you can answer, is there any part of your life where you are afraid to set boundaries with a specific person? Maybe not anymore. I know in the past maybe there was. Or like in a work situation, family situation, extended family, like is there anywhere you are afraid of that? Okay. Alexa, what time is it? Okay. We good. We got a little time. So I think this is something good to talk about. Like I said, I have this boundaries course. You can go to ChristyJade.com. This is for anyone here or on replay. If you suck at setting boundaries, if you feel like you can't do it without someone getting mad at you, I quit a job over the co-workbook. Yes, good. And I was telling this story, which you may have heard before, where my boss was like the Devil Wears Prada boss, and I got laid off. There was a huge layoff. I could have been one of them anyway, but I knew like I'd probably be the first to go because I stood up to her before that happened. And not in a strong, crazy, fierce, Christy way. I was respectful. It's my boss. But I said, I think that she was having me do something just as a power play. It was obvious because she could have easily done it herself or have her assistant do it or whatever, right? A lot easier than I could. It's a long story to get into, but I said, you have me set up for this meeting, so I see that you have this access, which would make it easier and really quick for you to do, so I'm going to go ahead, go to that meeting, and if you could take care of that, like, basically. And that, it didn't go over well. Everybody say good morning. So, but that's the thing. I'm not afraid. I'm trying to think in any way. Sometimes I'll still get that heart flutter because I get nervous of people's reaction. But I also know if someone gives a poor reaction to me setting a boundary, that's a them thing. It's not me. And they have to live with their feelings. So that like flutter that used to stay, and I'd say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or, oh, maybe I should say they can do that. Maybe I should go, with certain family members or whatever, because I was afraid of, rocking the caged animal. Where now I get that feeling, I get the little sometimes little heart flutter or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, then I do it and then it's like, okay, it's done. And I know I did what I had to do for myself to protect my peace. That's it. Move on. And if they have a problem with it, but I've had, even recently, a friend where I set a boundary. It's tough with family members and one's own children. The one's own children, I think, is probably the hardest of all. I get that. I get that a lot. So I don't envy anybody who has to deal with it with their own children, because I think that's got to be the hardest. Well, another hard one is if your parent is like a narcissist, right? I have clients with narcissistic parents, and when you're a kid, you have no choice but to stay in that situation. You are under the thumb, literally, emotionally, everything, physically, of them, because you are a child. And so you have no way out. And that can set your whole life up, and that's what we're talking about. Having a situation like that can set you up for a life of, and happened to me. I'm not saying who was in, how do I word it? I don't know. Who was what in my family, but my situation had me grow up where I felt like it was okay to be yelled at. It was it was like the norm. I didn't know any different really until I did. And then I was like, hold up, I don't think this is okay. And especially when I met my husband, and I was like, oh my God, he was like a different human, because I had attracted this type of dynamic even with friendships where people were harsh, you know, and not loving, not unconditionally loving in the way of understanding, more understanding than unconditional love. But, you know, that like my husband is so understanding. His whole family is like, okay. Da, da. And even if they might have feelings about it, they don't make you feel bad about it. Like if you can't make it to something, it's not like this big guilt trip comes after, right? So how I grew up created a dynamic of my friendships, relationships. But I will say I had a relationship like that. And after him, I was so like, I can never be in a situation like that again where I feel like this. I took a big break from dating after that, but I started to really listen to my body. You have a gut feeling to avoid. Yes, Marie. Because once you know what it feels like, I think that helps too. When you've actually gone through it, as much as it sucks, I feel like I know what it feels like, and I never am going to feel that way again. That's never going to happen. And when I get even a hint of someone toxic, it's like I can see it so quickly now. Where my whole life until my 30s, honestly, till I was like 32, 34. Yeah, before they weren't red flags. They were like, that's just how people roll. I mean, I didn't, deep down, did I think certain things were not cool or I didn't like them? Yeah, but part of me thought, oh, that's just how some people are. Like, I dismissed it. I accepted it. Also because who wants to really dig into that? It's not fun to dig into, right? Like oh, my family XYZ and this is jacked up, you know? Like, no one wants that. You want to love your family. You want to be close to your family. You know? But I discovered when I got married and when I started, no, it shifted too when I had a daughter. That happens to a lot of people where people will marry abusive people and then they have kids and then they're like, I don't want this for them, you know? And that is motivation to get out. And with my daughter, I was like, I don't want my own family, extended family, whatever. I don't want her to think this is okay. This treatment's okay. I don't want her to grow up with this dynamic with people in her life, right? I want her to see that I'm going to set a boundary with this person, and then we're going to see their response. And if it's not good, that's a them thing. And then I remove myself from the situation. I have zero tolerance and zero space for anything from peace. Do people have bad days? Yes. Do I give grace? Yes. But when it is a pattern, when, you know, there's a difference between toxic people and people who have bad days, or people who make a bad decision, or people who, you know, are grumpy and tired and say something not the best, right? We have to have grace. But when a toxic person is an ongoing dynamic, right? It's not something that's just here or there or someone had a bad day. It's like this person, they're just toxic and they're abusive. And abusive people use that word and it sounds like a big word. So sometimes I try to stay away from it in certain situations because then people are like, oh, so dramatic, it's abuse. But I mean, emotional abuse, it's to me, it doesn't matter what the label is, what it's called. If someone is not treating you right and how you deserve to be treated, and you all deserve to be treated well, you don't create these situations, you're not causing someone to mistreat you. That's their choice. If you do something they don't like, they have a choice to also walk away or to not engage, whatever it is. You can never force. That's something I get so passionate about when people say, well, he hit me, but you know, maybe I caused it, right? They've got them so brainwashed. Nobody causes another human to mistreat them. That is a choice that they are making. And if they can't control it, even more reason to get away, right? Good luck to you. You can't control yourself. That's a you problem again. Not my shit. That's my big hashtag. Hashtag not my shit. I have a not my shit journal. Do you know that, Marie? You probably do. That you can buy on Amazon. It's called hashtag not my shit journal. It's hard to search, so if you want it, let me know. It's like every day it has blocks of like different sections of what's not my shit. And it's just to like every morning, if there's something weighing on you of like, you feel like you're carrying, but you shouldn't be, it's a good way to start your day. To do 1 hour YouTube live hangouts with guests. Well, it looks like I am doing that. We're at 30 minutes. Thank you. Well, that's what my podcast is for. YouTube, the algorithm with my channel, it got botched because YouTube doesn't like when you're on there a long time and then you back off, which I did when I adopted my daughter and I started working more and all that. I didn't have enough time. And I used to engage more. I had a lot more engagement, a lot more subscribers. I still have like 20,000, I think. But you can see the ratio, right? I have 20,000 subscribers, but barely any people on, because YouTube will punish you if you, and it's just, look, it's business for them. Like, I get it. But if you don't show up all the time their way, the system punishes you in a way, right? So it's whatever. I'm here. I pray to God every day. God, let the ears that need to hear me in whatever way you can. And every day I ask God, should I do YouTube this morning? Right? What do I talk about on my podcast? Like, God is my director, and because I want to help everybody, I want to help more people, like, to a fault where I feel like it's never good enough and I'm never enough in that way. That's my toxic trait. No. But yeah, it's tough these days to get a crowd. Yeah, it's oversaturated, the market, you know? So the podcast is a way where people go on there knowing they're going to spend an hour, you know? All the sugar. Oh, I love that. That is the cutest thing ever. Oh, I love being sugar and coffee. I love sugar. I actually like coffee, but I don't drink caffeine anymore. Sad story. But I do have a call at 9 I need to get ready for. So I'm glad I could pop on and hang out. I will do more of these topics. And that's what I kind of, when I prayed this morning, God was like, talk about what you're passionate about, you know, keep talking about it. So if you don't, you know, always give me your feedback. If you don't like this topics, let me know, you know. But yay. So go rewatch this if you want to get the whole spiel. Boundaries are a very important thing to be able to set, and always pay attention to the response when you set your boundaries. That will give you a very clear prediction of if you should keep this person close to you, you know? All right. Bye, Marie. So glad you hopped on, and I'm so glad I'm the sugar in your coffee. That makes my day. And bye, Bubbles. Jonesy, I don't know if you're still there. Whoever else, if you just popped on, I saw some people hopped on. Definitely subscribe so you can hang out more. Yay, boundaries! Deuces and smooches and deuces. It's a lot of smooches, or a lot of deuces.